Are you going to be taking a vacation with your animal family member in tow? Let's talk about how you can prepare. In this video, we'll talk about researching the health requirements for your animal family member upon re-entry to the island, and we'll do a brief overview of the veterinary care they're going to need in preparation. If you're going to be taking your dog or cat with you when you fly off island and then return to the island, your first step to prepare is going to be to Google search Department of Agriculture Checklist 3. This is a document that has a complete list of what will be required of you by the state of Hawaii to allow your dog or cat to be released right away from the quarantine station when you land. We're going to do a brief overview here of what will be required health-wise, just because it can be a bit hard to visualize and understand. But please refer to the checklist as the most accurate source of information. To find the complete list of requirements, Google search Department of Agriculture Checklist 3, and it will typically be the first one that pops up. When you click on it, it is a PDF. The top page outlines which checklist you should use. For those of us who are traveling from Hawaii out of state and plan to return, we will be using checklist 3, and the rest is a complete checklist of the requirements that you'll need to meet in order for your animal family member to be released directly from the quarantine station when you arrive back in Hawaii. This flowchart is a breakdown which demonstrates the health requirements that your animal family member will need to meet before they re-enter the island so that they don't have to spend longer in quarantine. You'll be able to just pick them up from the quarantine station when you arrive. Let me talk a little bit more in detail about what each of these steps are. Starting to the left, the first step will be to make sure your animal family member has a readable microchip. A microchip is a tiny little device that is sitting underneath your dog or cat's skin, usually around their shoulder blade area, and it holds a number. That number is like an ID, and it's the only way for your animal family member to be identified as an individual. The microchip number is going to be on any rabies certificates that they have and on the FAVN titer, and so the Department of Agriculture will be able to confirm this animal with the ID that we're able to scan matches this paperwork that we have. So we'll make sure the microchip works. If they don't have one, we can insert one. We can do this on the same day as the first rabies vaccination. The requirement is they need 2 rabies vaccinations within their lifetime, and the 2 vaccinations can't have been given fewer than 30 days apart. So if we're starting at the beginning and your animal family member has never been vaccinated for rabies before, we'll start as soon as possible by giving them their first vaccination. We'll wait 30 days. We won't want to do the next vaccination any sooner. And once that 30 days is up, we'll administer the second rabies vaccination. At the time of each of these vaccinations, you'll receive their rabies certificate. Rabies certificates are signed in blue ink by the doctor. We'll usually send you with more than one original copy, one for your own files, and one that you'll be submitting to the Department of Agriculture. After that second rabies vaccine is administered, we'll wait another 30 days. That's about the time it'll take for your animal family member's body to build up the required amount of antibody that defends them against rabies. That'll be important because the next step, the FAVN, which is short for fluorescent antibody virus neutralization, basically it's just a test that screens for an adequate amount of antibodies. When your animal family member comes in for their FAVN blood draw, we will draw their blood, package it up, and send it to an approved lab. Typically, we'll use Kansas State Rabies Laboratory. There, they will run the FAVN test and produce official results. The official original results will be sent from the lab directly to the Department of Agriculture in Hawaii, but they'll usually email us a copy, and we'll give that copy to you, which you can put together in the paperwork that you send off to the Department of Agriculture. Between the FAVN and the health certificate, there's a time allowance of 4 to 6 weeks. Generally, that's about the time it takes for them to process those results. So once we see those results come through via email, we know that we're all clear to schedule the health certificate. We'll schedule your health certificate sometime between 7 and 14 days before travel. The date that we schedule will be dependent on what your airline. Look on the website of your airline about their pet travel requirements, because that will dictate the amount of days ahead that we do this health certificate. In general, many of them will require an exam and health certificate be performed in less than 10 days before travel. At Polina Vet, we'll typically advise our clients to schedule about 7 days prior to their flight. A week is quite a few days in advance, But if anything changes with your flight, if it becomes delayed, there's still a few days wiggle room that will allow the certificate to be valid if plans change. This flowchart is a look at the process start to finish, but do note the starting place in this flowchart is dependent on the animal as an individual. If your dog or cat was born on island in Hawaii, more likely they've never been vaccinated for rabies, and so we'd be starting at the beginning. If you're saying to yourself, oh no, I don't have 3.5 months to complete this process, what do I do? That depends on how long you're going to be on the mainland and at what point you're planning to travel back to the island. Regardless of when you're leaving island, if it's going to be more than 3.5 months before you return, you still have enough time to complete this process. You'll just be continuing some of the veterinary care on the mainland. In that case, you'll want to refer to checklist 1 as if you were coming from the mainland for the first time instead of checklist 3. If you're going to be leaving and returning in less than 3.5 months, you may want to consider other options such as boarding or adjusting your travel plans a bit. And the last thing to note, this flowchart focuses on the veterinary care aspect and requirements, but there are other things that you'll need to do, other steps outside of this on the Department of Agriculture checklist. So please do refer to that for the complete list of requirements.